saying he's the first-year wideout most likely to win it all. Plus, we're giving Packers fans a reality check named Jordan Love. And we're giving Russell Wilson an early birthday present named Julio Jones. This is NFL Total Access. Welcome to NFL Total Access. My name is MJ Acosta-Ruiz, and today we begin in the NFL's capital city of hope and hype, Dallas, Texas. The Cowboys are the most popular team in the NFL, and yet for the last 25 years, their reputation has been let down by their application. But hey, I'll give you two reasons why this year could change everything. Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. Head coach Mike McCarthy, the pressure is on. The mic is too, as La'el Collins shares his thoughts on his quarterback.
I mean, he's definitely a big-time leader. I mean, he don't even. I mean, man, it gives me chills to think about it because he don't complain. Even if things are bothering him, he just finds a way to keep going and keep pushing through. And that goes a long way with guys, especially. It's been days where we be out there and it's like, man, it's a tough day, but he keeps going, and it makes everybody else want to keep going, especially me. And when I see that guy, that's who I do it for. I do it for that guy. That's my locker mate, and I protect him at all costs. So that's what it's about.
Our go-to source for all things Cowboys, Jane Slater, is here with us today. James Jones, Andrew Hawkins on deck the whole show as well. Jane, I'm going to start with you here. You've been at Cowboys camp all day. Mike McCarthy spoke a little about the outlook for CeeDee Lamb in year two. Now, with Dak's return, this seems like the partnership Dallas has been waiting for.
Well, and they were waiting also to be able to get this new coaching staff, Dak Prescott, and a lot of these players back from injury, back on the football field. That's why, MJ, they were telling to us today, there wasn't really anyone that spoke out against OTAs. As it was told to us by several players, they're trying to build something special in Dallas. And to do that, you need to be on the football field. Now, Dak Prescott said last week that essentially he was ready to go if he needed to go today. But instead, we saw him doing quite a bit of work out there, but still limiting him in those 11 and 11 drills. And it's got to be good to see Tyron Smith out there and La'el Collins. There were so many combination changes because of injuries on the offensive line. And then they went through 4 quarterbacks last year. The other thing that really stood out to me, and maybe my man James Jones can weigh in on this, Mike McCarthy on a loud mic going through practice. All of us, in fact, I had my binoculars out with a bunch of other reporters going, who is that barking in practice? We couldn't find a mic. I'm assuming it was a wireless one, although I never saw the battery pack. But there was a different energy at practice. And I do believe, yes, it helps that Mike McCarthy's been able to settle into his role as a head coach, and now he's got those guys out in the football field. But I do think a lot of this starts with Dak Prescott. And you heard it there from a guy like La'el Collins, seeing him push himself the way that he was in the offseason in the programs, seeing him out at practice, rallying these guys, the importance of getting back out to practice. Everyone says the reason why they do a lot of these things is for that guy.
I love it. I love Coach Mike. We all know I played for Coach Mike for a long time, and I love the energy that he brings. But I'm excited about this Cowboy team, and we all should be excited about this Cowboy team, what they did on defense, what they have on offense, and I'm really excited to see CeeDee Lamb go into year number 2 with Dak Prescott. He was lights out last year. He played with a couple different quarterbacks, but you get the man back under center, Dak Prescott, and you get the ball into this dude's hands right here. You are going to see a lot more explosive plays from CeeDee Lamb in this season with Dak Prescott under center. And last year he had 900+ yards. This season, I'm telling you right now, easily he will go over 1,200 yards receiving. Attention on Amari Cooper. This guy in the slot, getting on the nickel corners, getting on the third corners, the way he gets yacked after the catch, this is going to be a big-time year for him. I think he's going to take that Cowboys offense with Dak Prescott to a whole nother level this season.
I think you're spot on, JJ, as usual, man. I think CeeDee Lamb takes a big jump in year 2, even though he had a great rookie campaign. I remember in that draft, There was some controversy about them saying maybe the Cowboys should have drafted for need instead of best available, and you don't even hear those arguments anymore because CeeDee Lamb is that great of a talent. He's a guy that can do it on the outside. He can do it from the slot. He does it in the return game, a la Dez Bryant. He really is that versatile for this team. You couple that with a healthy offensive line, Dak Prescott getting back to form, and yes, I think CeeDee Lamb takes it to a whole new level. When we're talking about quarterbacks, I usually reserve them taking a jump in year 2 because it's the opposite. I feel like defenses catch up to rookie quarterbacks who play well in year 2, and there's typically a slump. Receiver, it's the other way around. If you come out with such a great campaign as a rookie, in year 2, the sky is the limit, and that's what I suspect for CD.
JJ, you mentioned CeeDee Lamb's 900-something yards there. This is how they broke down. Those first 5 weeks when Dak was out there, he had 433. The rest of the year, 502. So the difference when Dak is thrown to him, noticeable. All right, Jane, you're our eyes and ears out there, of course. What were some other key observations from you today?
Well, weighing in real quick with you guys, talking about CeeDee Lamb, one of my fellow colleagues noticed he was wearing a pink bracelet, and it said, "Get your popcorn ready." So, of course, we asked him, is that an homage to anyone? And, of course, he said, old Tio, who, of course, used to be in Dallas. And he even spoke about that wide receiver room. He said, this is a group that, if you look at them, they almost had 3,000 yards between the 3 of them, something they had talked about last year. He said that they really can take the top off of opposing defenses. And it's interesting about this group. One of the coaches said they are the quietest group of wide receivers with talent that he's ever worked with. So that was one thing that stood out for me. And then also Leighton Vander Esch. He made a big play, a big interception today, came down with it. Took him a little bit to get up, but he said he feels good. In fact, I said, any hesitancy given some of your injuries and all that talk about you? And he said, nope, I'm not going to let injuries be an excuse for me playing half, and I'll let you guys imagine what the word is there.
Yeah, we can definitely put 2 and 2 together, no doubt. Jane Slater, thank you so much. All right, meantime, in the AFC, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs were on the field. Mahomes has been recovering, of course, from toe surgery, but by all accounts says he feels like he could play right now if need be.
How's your toe feeling? You full go?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, if there was a game, I'd be able to play in it, I think. At the end of the day, I mean, there's still stuff I'm going to have to work through. I have to continue to rehab and continue to keep strengthening that stuff. But it's good to be able to get out there a little bit earlier than the schedule had me and be able to get some work in.
In Atlanta, there is still a big question mark surrounding Julio Jones. After Jones stated, "I'm out of there," in regards to staying with the Falcons, many are wondering where would Julio end up and when could we see this move happen? So, guys, I bring the question to the 2 of you, JJ and Hawk, but slightly different form here. Where would Julio Jones make the biggest impact this season? James, start us off.
I would love to see him stay in the division. The New Orleans Saints. You get Michael Thomas, you get Julio Jones, you get Alvin Kamara on the same football team with head coach Sean Payton. I'm telling you right now, this is unstoppable. It don't matter. I know everybody like, who gonna throw the ball? Taysom Hill, James. It doesn't matter. When you have these weapons on the outside, you have Alvin Kamara in the backfield, this is unstoppable. I would love to see him in a Saints uniform in that offense with Michael Thomas on the other side and Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Look out. That's scary.
I agree that Julio Jones does make the New Orleans Saints better. I disagree that it doesn't matter who's throwing him the football for the simple fact that he's a better receiver. Of course, he can make any team better, but are you going to get the most out of Julio Jones if he doesn't feel like he has the top talent at the quarterback position? That's why I'm choosing the Seattle Seahawks. I think if Julio goes to the Seattle Seahawks, I mean, with all the conversation around them, he needs to go to a place with an established quarterback, not because he needs it from an ability standpoint, but because he's trying to win a Super Bowl. And that's the team he could go to and make an immediate Super Bowl contender along the other side of DK Metcalf with Tyler in the slot. Also, it reminds me of when Randy Moss went to New England. That similar situation. You pair a top wide receiver who's a little later in age with a top quarterback, sparks fly.
We've heard
If you had Julio Jones, Mike Thomas, and Alvin Kamara, hey, I'm picking you on my fantasy team. You're going to complete some passes, brother, for sure.
That sounds like a fantasy roster all on its own. All right, guys, thank you. For your home, let's get you caught up on the latest headlines from around the NFL. Tom Pelissero is with us now. And Tom, as we go through these summer months, league office and teams definitely still very busy. What is the latest on the COVID rules as we head into the 2021 season?
Well, MJ, still a lot of questions in terms of COVID protocols, even for training camp. And another question is about whether or not some of the COVID-related changes to roster rules from last season will carry over. Nothing official yet, but all signs point to a lot of those rules carrying forward to 2021, including unlimited and faster return for players from injured reserve and expanded 16-man practice squads. Those were tweaks that were popular both with teams and players. Think about the 49ers late last season getting George Kittle back after he had missed only 6 games, not the 8 that would normally have been required. Plus, with all the injuries San Francisco had, chances are they would have burned their 2 designated to return spots. Now it became unlimited. The Saints benefited a couple times. Drew Brees came back in just 4 weeks from an injury. Michael Thomas was given 3 weeks at the end of the regular season to just rest, get his ankle right, get back to 100% for the playoffs. Teams got flexibility. Players, in a lot of cases, got a little bit more time to recover from some of those nagging types of injuries. The NFL and NFLPA continue to discuss a variety of issues here. May not get clear answers on a lot of these things, MJ, just like last year, until right before training camp.
Exactly. So a lot of time from then and now, a lot of things could shift. Tom Pelissero, thank you. Coming up next, he's Lamar Jackson's new weapon. All right, Ravens owner Stephen Bisciotti and his wife Renee announced they are creating the Ozzie Newsome Scholars Program to honor the Ravens' longtime personnel executive and Pro Football Hall of Famer by making a $4 million gift in his name to Maryland's historically black colleges and universities.
Morgan floating one for the front left pylon. Climbing the ladder is Rashad Bateman. He'll loft it downfield. Bateman's got it, and the Gophers strike quickly. Little pass. That's Bateman, and he tumbles in. Touchdown. Morgan looks the other way. He's looking for that front left pylon, and Bateman again. That's another Minnesota touchdown. He's run down the sideline. What a catch! Rashad Bateman, one hand.
How's that for a hype video as we welcome in Ravens rookie wide receiver Rashad Bateman. Rashad, thanks for coming through.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That one-handed catch, though, we had to run it back quite a few times on that video there, but I want to take it to where that one-handed catch got you, which was draft night. Some thought you might be going to the Packers at 29, but the Ravens drafted you with the 27th overall pick. Describe that feeling for us.
Just getting drafted in general is definitely a blessing. So I was just excited to hear my name called no matter who called me. But it was Baltimore, and, now I'm here. I've gotten around the players, the coaches, as far as me, I feel like it was the best decision for me. So it all ended up working out.
I mean, the family reactions are my favorite part of the draft. And another point of celebration for you, a couple weeks ago, you signed your contract, about $6.5 million signing bonus. This is none of my business, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Anything you treated yourself to after signing your first contract?
I got my mom a house.
Oh.
That's the first thing. Yeah.
Amazing. That's the answer I had in my head, and it's exactly what you did. Oh, that is beautiful. I love that. That's the dream, right? To be able to tell your parents, "Now I got you. Look at you."
That's
First
the
order
dream.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So your coach, John Harbaugh, said after camp a couple weeks ago that you are, quote, as advertised from a talent standpoint. What is it that you bring to the Ravens offense that will make it even better?
First and foremost, I just think, I'm a good teammate. I think that's what it starts with, being a professional athlete or an athlete in general. As far as my game as a receiver, I feel like I'm a whole package receiver that has proven that I can play on the outside and inside. With the work ethic that I have, I built up the confidence, to be able to go out and play with that. But at the same time, I'm here to be the best teammate, player that I can be for this organization. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Let's talk about your teammates then. Lamar Jackson, your quarterback in particular. What's it like having him as your QB?
Man, it's definitely crazy, especially growing up watching him. He's been in the league quite a little bit now. So just going out there and, running around with him, playing the game of football with him is definitely surreal. It still really hasn't even hit me yet that I'm in the NFL. But, man, we go out there and we make plays. It's all just fun to see.
Let's talk about that wide receiver room. What's your relationship like with Hollywood Brown? Has he given you any advice yet as you come into the league?
Yeah, me and Hollywood, we've been talking ever since the night that I was drafted. He hit me up, I hit him up. We're just kind of ready to get to work. We feel like we could do special things. We go out to practice. That's all we talk about inside the facility, outside the facility. The wide receiver room, we're definitely building a strong bond that I love to be a part of. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Now, I can't let you leave without asking you about being part of one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL. Ravens versus Steelers. You play the Steelers week 13 and 18 this season. Who knows? Maybe that final week of the season could be for the division.
It could be. I've been hearing that rivalry a lot. It's crazy. Pittsburgh's my dad's favorite team, so we're going to have some tough conversations that week. But, I'm looking forward to the matchup. There's a lot of history there, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Tell Dad he's got to switch over now. Come on now.
He got to now. He got it.
Rashad, so excited for you. Excited to see you hit the field this season with the Ravens. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great chat with Rashad yesterday. Impossible to do a hair and wardrobe change that quickly, guys. But there are high expectations for the 2021 first-round wide receivers class, a list that includes Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith within that top 10 players selected in this year's draft. Our guest today, Rashad, as you saw there, rounding out the receivers at 27th overall. So, guys, you remember the superlatives back in high school? I was a bit of an outcast, so I didn't really win anything, but our receivers, surely anything but. Let's start with who is most likely to succeed this year in the NFL. Who gets that nod, James Jones?
None of those guys' names we just showed right there, MJ, even though they all win the first round and they probably have good years. But mine is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He went to the Detroit Lions. Detroit shipped all their receivers out. Marvin Jones is out of there. You get Kenny Galladay out of there. So it's really him and Jared Goff over there ready to go to work. This is an excellent route runner. He could go up and get the football, make the tough catches. But he is going to see a lot of targets, a lot of opportunity to make plays, make mistakes, all that good stuff, and I think he's going to have a big-time year in this offense with Jared Goff.
I like that. I'm also not going with the receivers we had in that list. I'm going with Elijah Moore with the New York Jets because Corey Davis is there, a guy they brought in. But I know with this offense that Mike LaFleur runs, you need a guy that you can throw as many targets to as possible from inside and outside. Elijah Moore does that. He plays the inside. He plays the outside. One of the best route runners, if not the best route runner in this draft. I expect him to have a big, big season and win the superlative that we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely not limited just to the first rounders, fellas. All right, there's always that super popular couple who wins best couple every year. Well, we're going here with the QB wide receiver tandem for our version. So which duo that includes a rookie receiver gets it in your eyes, JJ?
Well, you just talked to the wideout, and that's Rashad Bateman. Him and Lamar Action Jackson is about to go to work. Everything I'm hearing about this young fella, like Coach Harbaugh said, as advertised, but I know a couple of coaches in that building, and they said he is going to be special. In and out of his breaks, able to go make the explosive play, get the ball into his hands fast. I think Lamar Jackson going to fall in love with this kid. I think this is the best couple that we are going to see this season coming up.
My best couple goes to a couple that is rekindling an old flame, JJ. It's Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Nothing like a couple that, gets it back together after they finish high school. And that's what we're going with. These are two guys that in 2019, they went for 1,780 yards and 20 touchdowns. Now, I thought the Bengals should have won tackle, but you cannot deny Jamar Chase and how talented he is. He was absolutely the best wide receiver available, and I'm sure that chemistry is a big reason why the Bengals went in that direction. Again, I expect them to have a huge season back together and be a tandem we talk about for years to come.
We need to get a mock-up for all these duos, that awkward, stepbrothers pose with the sweaters. So we need ahead of the season there. All right, perhaps the most important superlative of all. Who's the most likely to win a Super Bowl, JJ?
Well, I'm going to say Cornell Powell. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and all those playmakers over there, Travis Kelce. He's not going to go out there and have 1,000 yards and have 100 catches, but he's going to have about 40 catches. He's going to have some plays in there to where they're going to get the ball into his hands, and he's with the Chiefs. They are going back to the Super Bowl with all these talent they have over there. He's going to be the one to get him a Super Bowl first.
That's cheating, JJ. That's like voting the kid who's the son of a billionaire most likely to get rich. That don't count. Yes, he's walking into a great situation. I'm going with Rashad Bateman because I feel like with his addition, he can aid the Baltimore Ravens in actually getting the Super Bowl championship. I mean, you talked about it. They are raving about this kid, the way he runs route. He is a tough wide receiver on the outside, a guy who is made for this AFC North division. Definitely can make sparks fly and give Lamar Jackson another option outside the numbers, which he has been longing for his years in the league.
I hear what you're saying, Hawk. That's good for TV, but we know the Chiefs is going back, man. Cornell Powell.
A lot of love for Rashad Bateman, though. I'm here for it. All right, listen, there's no way we could do this segment without a little Throwback Thursday. So, yeah, we do have all three of our high school photos. Listen, why is mine black and white, though? I want to know why my school had it in black and white.
What are you, MJ? Are you 98? What? Y'all didn't have... What is that? Hey, check out my braids, though. I am hanging. I'm eating now.
The braids is tight.
I was flowing.
Hey, you got a little hang time up there, man. You see me? I got my little bow tie on and all that, man. I'm trying to stay fresh out there.
We got some Twitter perspective here. Mina Kimes chiming in on your picture, Hawk. How did Hawk look older then? I don't know, Hawk. Maybe it's the braids. You know those braids are probably just done. So tight, you got a headache. Can't even go to sleep. Can't even lay down.
Got his head tilted to the side.
Yeah, kind of. Like this. And the stash has now grown, Jay. I think we look exactly the same from back then. I think mine might have been in middle school. I don't know.
Hey, we aged well. We look good up there.
Is that melanin? Come on, honey. You know this. All right, guys. The reigning Super Bowl champs continue their OTAs out in Tampa. The band is back together, and their drum major, if you will, is leading by example. Bucs offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich spoke today about how Tom Brady's mentality is contagious.
What you appreciate from Tom and what you admire from Tom is nothing gets in the way of football. That's why he survived this long. That's why he's achieved the things that he's achieved in this league, because he's truly committed to it. Nothing gets in the way, and he's not just preaching it and talking it. He actually lived by it. And I think it's good for all football players to see this sort of commitment and what it can bring and what it can transform you into.
Brady and the Bucs won it all last year, but that was their first playoff appearance since 2007. When it comes to the longest active playoff streaks, the Chiefs are leading that charge with 6 straight seasons, followed by the Saints with 4. The Ravens and Seahawks have 3 apiece. For more, let's send it over to Mike Garafolo.
Here for Total Access Overtime, hanging out with a few of my friends at a wonderful time of year, a time where there are zeros in the loss column. So everybody's got a reason to hope. But when you talk to coaches and personnel guys around the league, a lot of times they'll say, I got a secret. There's really only like 8 or 10 or 12 teams. The number varies, the number of teams that they believe could actually win the Super Bowl. So let's talk about some of these Super Bowl windows that are opening for some teams right now and closing for some teams, because we'll give it to you straight, starting with Kim Jones. Kim, let's start with some Super Bowl teams in your mind that are now entering the conversation.
Well, I think it's clearly the Buffalo Bills for number 1 for me, guys. I sat in this seat back in, I think it was late October or early November, and I said, we have to stop treating the Bills like the little engine that could, because they're a cute franchise, right? It's quaint in Orchard Park, New York, and their fans are like college programs, really. They are so enthusiastic, and they wait at the airport, and they do all of that stuff. Well, a lot of that stuff, all of that stuff is true, but they're a really, really well-coached, well-run, and outstanding roster of a football team. A lot of it's because of that guy, Josh Allen, by the way. And I asked Josh recently on Zoom about the idea that he is now the poster child for the idea that any quarterback who has to make improvements when he gets into this league, well, Josh Allen did it. And he's not really worried about that. He did smile at the question. But Josh has bigger things that he's concerned about this season, and that's the Bills being even better than they were before. They know what's in front of them, and I believe they're a very confident group. They're also not afraid of really hard work, and a lot of them are full force at it in Orchard Park.
Yeah, Mike, I'm curious, do those coaches include their own teams when they tell you that there's only 8 or 10 teams that can go to the Super Bowl? I'm always curious how the coaches actually feel about their group. Yeah, most of the time. Okay, good. So, well, to Kim's point, I agree. I think the Buffalo Bills are probably the cream of the crop as far as Super Bowl windows starting to open with what they've done on the offensive side. I love what they do schematically on both sides of the ball, and they're fantastic, and they've really helped Josh come along from an offensive scheme standpoint, but with Diggs and with Beasley and then the additions that they made on offense to kind of help that quarterback just start to flourish. I love that team. I think that you have to have a guy like that. I also like the Browns. I think the Browns are interesting. They've been kind of in the cellar for the last 2 decades. They beat the Steelers twice in a row last year, once in the playoffs. Probably should have had a chance to beat the Chiefs, although it was without Patrick Mahomes for a little bit of that game. I think that is one of the things, one of the teams that you look at as a team that can run the football and play good defense. I mean, what Kevin Stefanski was able to do with Baker Mayfield was settle him in, give him easy completions, run the football. I mean, they were a top 5 rushing team, and that's kind of offense that translates and that you can kind of carry over, and you can say, you know what, these guys are going to be able to do that again, because that's repeatable offense. That's not something where we're just taking shots down the field, hoping we make completions. They have a repeatable offense that is based off a strong running game. I really like the Browns as well.
I think that it's the teams, like if it's 8 teams that can win the Super Bowl, then it's not, they're including their team, right? If it's 10, then they're going to include anyways, it's all about how many numbers they end up saying. I think both of those are great picks. It's really hard to argue anything about the Bills that is not, completely Super Bowl aspirations this year, for sure. Same thing with the Browns, who also take advantage of the fact that maybe the Steelers are not quite as in the same position as we've seen the Steelers be in the past. So the division really matters a lot. But if I'm looking out a little bit further, maybe not 2021, but maybe 2022 or further, it's really hard to not think that the Dolphins have something special going on. Their defense is completely changed from before. They've really started to come into their own. It will really depend on what is Tua Tagovailoa going to become? Who is he going to be? Or is he the quarterback of their future? I think that they're kind of a team that is willing to kind of figure it out. So when I look to see who would I kind of think about for years to come, in addition to those 2 that you already mentioned, I like the Dolphins too.
David, I remember being at training camp a couple of years ago, and everybody was hot for the Browns. They had just traded for Odell Beckham, and everybody was talking about them being a contender. And I remember a head coach of a perennial Super Bowl contender, I'm not going to say who it was having a conversation with him, and he said, everybody's all excited about the Browns, and they're not one of the teams that is going to be in the playoff contention, into the Super Bowl contention into January. And he walked off, and that was it. It was the last thing he said, and he walked away. And he was right. I can't say who it was. He was right. By the way, as far as Super Bowl windows opening, when we had this idea for this conversation, the one team that kind of popped into my head late, I said, what about the New England Patriots? Do they count? Can their Super Bowl window open after being closed for only a year? I don't know. Perhaps we should throw them into this conversation. But speaking of Super Bowl windows closing, that's the part of this that I find interesting, because this is the part that's going to tick some people off, and I love that. Kim Jones, why don't you start rankling the folks?
Well, I don't know if this should rankle, but I look at Tampa Bay, and they've loaded up again, right? And they very well might win it again, right? With Tom Brady, ageless Tom Brady, and with all of the principals back, and their defense under Todd Bowles was absolutely fantastic, especially, as we know, in the Super Bowl. But to me, Tampa is one of those teams. It's not going to last forever, the way this roster's built, the way the money was spent, and just when it does come down to Father Time. But could they do it again this year? Yes, heck yes. I'm not going to rule them out for this year.
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about quarterbacks, basically, when you're talking about that team and it closing, basically you're saying Tom Brady's getting near the end, and that's probably why. Well, Drew Brees is at the end, and Drew Brees is done, and he's no longer the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. And that relationship between him and Sean Payton was special, and they were fantastic, and they were dynamic on offense for the last 2 decades. Now, they've had success, with Teddy Bridgewater, with throwing different guys in there, and they've won football games. Now Jameis Winston's going to enter the chat, and he's going to try his hand at Sean Payton's offense, which I think he's going to do well. Is he going to be an all-time great like Drew Brees? It remains to be seen. That's going to be something that, man, they had a great run, and their window may be closing, and it may just be down to if Jameis Winston can pick that back up, put a little piece of wood in that window and keep it open for a little bit longer, because they got a talented team, and Sean Payton's a great play caller. It really comes down to number 2 and Jameis Winston, if he can kind of keep this thing going, but that could be a team that I could see it close pretty quick.
So I agree with both of you, but I want to point out 2 things. One, I think that Mike G was talking about Mike Tomlin when he was talking about the Browns. That's my guess for which coach it is. But I think the Steelers, they might have their Super Bowl window closing. Ben Roethlisberger, we saw it was all about those quick passes last season. And that O-line is not, it's not when I'm a little iffy. Maybe that's the right word that I think coming out this season. And their defense, they lost a lot of pieces this past offseason. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be the Steelers' Super Bowl season. And then one I have to throw in for good measure because we have to keep this quarterback theme going. That would be Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I think, again, their defense is not super helpful, and Russell Wilson himself talked about getting hit quite a bit. Not a great O-line, not one that I know, I wouldn't want my friend David standing behind him because that doesn't seem fun for anyone. So ultimately, those two may or may not, though that it doesn't seem like a Super Bowl situation for either one.
Cynthia, that's the one for me. It's almost into 2022, though. Because Russell Wilson's going to be with the Seahawks in 21. But we spent a lot of time this offseason talking about when is Russell Wilson not going to be the quarterback of the Seahawks, and in large part because Russell Wilson fanned those flames. So this is, again, going to be a storyline for us after the season. Their window has been open the entire last decade. And in large part because of Russell Wilson. This was a team that rebuilt, retooled, whatever R word you want to use there. They did it for a couple of years and still won 9, 10 games because of Russell Wilson. So if he takes his gripes from this past offseason into next offseason, we could be talking about a team that now has to reset at the quarterback position, which they're not going to be able to win that many games while they do that at that. I don't think so. I wouldn't think so, depending on who winds up being the guy there. So when I look at a window closing, I'm saying, all right, is it going to be a little bit uncomfortable for Russell Wilson and some of his teammates, particularly those guys that are going to be blocking for him, because we know what he said about them for this season. And then beyond, it's got to be a big question mark for Wilson and the Seahawks. By the way, before we check out here, I'm going to have to address that Mike Tomlin guess by you, because if I don't, people are going to think Cynthia was right. You're wrong. It wasn't Mike Tomlin. It was actually not somebody even in the division. Solid guess, though. Seems like a Mike Tomlin-like burn, but it wasn't. Cynthia Freeland, David Carr, Kim Jones. Thank you very much.
Packers front office head coach Matt LaFleur is taking things day by day, even as mandatory practices commence next week.
Yeah, I've got nothing to update, Rob, on that situation, and you guys all know how we feel about it.
Do you expect him to be here? It is mandatory.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see come Tuesday.
In the interim, Jordan Love is getting plenty of reps at camp and plenty of love on social from the Packers. They posted this video on Twitter, a compilation of the greatest hits so far at OTAs from Love. All right, JJ, you heard LaFleur there. I got nothing. What about you? Are we going to see Aaron soon?
I got nothing, MJ. No, I don't think we'll see Aaron come mini camp and any of this stuff right now that we got going on. But I do think 12 Aaron Rodgers will be there when training camp hits. Me knowing him, me having a relationship with him, me talking to him, he's a team guy. He wants to win a Super Bowl. I do not see him, if they do not trade him, I do not see him missing out on training camp and having an opportunity to go out there and get better with his teammates and try to get out here and win another Super Bowl. So I do think he'll show up for training camp. Me knowing him, knowing what type of guy he is, I think we'll see him for training camp, but I do not think we'll see him for mini camp and anything else. But training camp, get your popcorn ready. He'll be out there.
I don't know, JJ. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think we see him for minicamp, but at the same time, I don't know if they're ever going to see him in Green Bay. I flip-flop back and forth, and where I'm at now is I'm starting to really feel like he's going to be traded, and he is not going to be a Green Bay Packer. I mean, because what does he want? It's not a long-term extension. It's not a money situation. He wants to be respected. He wants to go somewhere else. I think he feels like he's been disrespected, and he's honestly ready to go on. I can't imagine we go through this whole song and dance with the history that he has in Green Bay if he is not serious about his position.
Hawk, I didn't hear anything you just said right now. All I heard was you say, JJ, send me an Aaron Rodgers jersey. He is going to be in a Green Bay Packers uniform this season. He'll be there for training camp, brother.
JJ said, nope, earmuffs. Well, either way, the watch continues. Thank you, guys. All right, this is NFL Total Access. I'm MJ Acosta-Ruiz, and after the break, we hope you have your permission slip because we are taking you on a field trip from Denver to Detroit to check out what's happening in the place that matters the most. On